My name's Mike. I'm president and owner of US Sports Video. I started US Sports Video over 20 years ago, and the United States Coaches Association has asked me to do a little presentation on how I got started. And it was not by design, it was quite by accident. I was a baseball coach at Lorain Catholic High School for the love of it, and the athletic director at a local public school, or Catholic school, St. Joseph's School. And one year at Lorain Catholic, they asked me to videotape the football game. I never had a camera or anything, but they had a camera I could use, and I tried doing a couple games looking through the little viewfinder. So I got a little television, and I put it on a platform and mounted the platform on a tripod. And then I had Sister Lucia sew me some Velcro strapping together, and I put the camera on top of the tripod, on top of the TV, with a little rubber mat up there. And I started using that to videotape the football games. Then as the time went on, some people asked me if I would build them. Akron Holben High School asked me, and Elyria Catholic. And I said, "You want me to build you one of these things?" So I had no idea how to start into something like that, and I went to my good friend Dr. John Fagan, who had founded Medical Data Systems, and I set up my little contraption on his living room floor there, and I thought he'd bust my bubble because he's saying it wasn't a very good idea or whatever, but he said, "I think you have a real good idea there." I said, "Great, I could draw up some little diagrams of it and start passing out brochures on this gizmo." He said, "Mike, don't try to do what the other guy does best. You know, don't try to do the other person's job. Find somebody that is into advertising and things like that, and have them do these things for you." So I found a local company, Stewart Advertising in Elyria, and I set my little camera system up in front of Ed's desk. He said, "That's a really nice concept, but you have to get rid of the straps." I said, "Well, it works real good this way." He says, "You can't market it that way, Mike." So one thing led to another, and we built some cabinets for the monitor and made it look into a real nice professional system. And then from there, we sold our first couple of them, which was a breakthrough. And now we really began to believe that we could make a business out of this. Dr. John, at first, I wanted to just sell the monitor and the tripod. He said, "You have to sell it as a whole system, not just pieces and parts." When the automobile industry makes a car, they don't sell wheels, horns, chassis separately. It's a complete system. So he really hammered home the systems concept. So we developed the very first system. We called it the Mark camera system. And it was like a poor man's studio package, where you had the camera, but you didn't have to look through the viewfinder. You could look at the nice monitor, and it was like a radar gun. You point the camera to the action on the field, and the monitor would move with it on the tripod. And that was the concept that we came up with, the Mark III system. Then we improved it, became the Mark IV system. And when I was first getting started, I had no capital to buy any of these monitors, because once we developed a container to put the monitor in, I had to find local manufacturers in the area. Out in Willoughby, Micah Snyder Sheet Manufacturing Company. I took my little monitor out there, and we designed the cabinet for it, and they built these cabinets and powder coated them and everything. And then a friend of mine, Jim Goodell, he was the plant engineer at Lorain Products. When Mr. Stocker initially started Lorain Products, he developed the cam-operated quick release assembly for on top of the monitor, so that the camera would snap right in there. We had to eliminate all those straps that we had on there to make it a real fine-tuned system that we could market. So I had to come up with some monitors to be able to build these cabinets. So actually my parents loaned me some money initially, which I never thought that they had any, and I was able to buy about 50 of these monitors. And many years ago, in the late 80s, when I first started the company, this is a picture that I gave my folks with the Mark system, with the tripod, the monitor, and the camera. And we started selling some of these camera systems. And I remember my very first ad that we put into a publication. And I put out the ad, And I was out on the road working for Honeywell. I worked as a field engineer for Honeywell for 28 years, so I was still working for Honeywell. And my wife called me on the phone. Somebody actually called from Indiana on this, our very first call of interest on this product. And one thing led into another. We started selling some of those, and the more we sold, the more confidence we had in the product. But I wasn't quite sure where to advertise them. And I had no background or anyone else out in the industry that I knew. So I started experimenting with this magazine, or doing direct mailings and things like that. And I oftentimes wondered how much benefit the advertising was. And Dr. John told me a story once about this guy that started a company, and he was very hesitant to put any money into advertising because he just didn't have the capital to expend in that. And he worked his company for about a year, and everybody was approaching him, why don't you put it out into this magazine or whatever, but he never did any advertising because he thought he couldn't afford it. So finally, he went out of business, so he advertised to sell his business. That's the first time he ever put out an advertisement to sell his business. So I think that advertising is so important. I learned that early on. We were a small company, but we had big full color page ads and things of that sort. So that was another thing that Dr. John inspired in me, to help me out. And you need a lot of people working together to make things happen, just like my parents loaning me the money, which I thought they didn't have, and they became so proud of me and doing this. And oftentimes I would take my dad to some of these football conventions. And one of the first trips for U.S. Sports Video that we made was to Washington, D.C., to George Washington University. And my dad, being from the old country and coming in through Ellis Island, he had never been to Washington, D.C., and we had a great time together. And the basketball coach wanted me to come out to show him one of these mark systems with the camera, the monitor, and the tripod. And that basketball coach at that time was John Kuster. He was the head basketball coach at George Washington University. Later on, he went up to Boston, and he was an intern working with the Boston Celtics. And currently, John is the head basketball coach for the Detroit Pistons. And the last 4 years, he was an assistant at the Cleveland Cavaliers. So he was that was my very first first or second Marks camera system that we built and sold to George Washington University. And I had the opportunity to be with my dad on many of these trips, and he helped me work the booth for the coaches. And as we progressed, we found various conferences, like football conferences, basketball clinics, and things like that, that we would take our product to and sell. And as we progressed, the coaches provided input into things that would be better or more useful in the video arena for the athletic field, and that's how our product line has developed. We have an affiliate in Texas, and Joel Kraus is the president of that company called Webb Electronics, another relatively small company. He named his company after Webb, Iowa, where he's from. And Joel also worked for Honeywell. I was a field engineer for Honeywell for 28 years. I worked in the computer division, installation and maintenance of computers, and Joel worked in the micro switch division. So one year the Dallas Cowboys approached him about trying to get some switches because they wanted to build a little remote control to control these new VCRs versus the old 16 millimeter. And he built the little box on his table with some buttons on it to control a VCR, and he gave it to Dallas Cowboys, and that became known as the Dallas Cowboy remote. We started working on something like that up here, but Joel came up to Ohio, showed us his box, and we said, let's go with that one. And that's been a part of NFL history as well. As time progressed, we continued building our custom camera systems. We got into digital editing systems, projectors, analyzers, VCRs, everything needed for the coaches to teach and train. And in the early 90s, we had heard of a few accidents up in the Northeast where somebody was getting hurt falling off some of the scaffolding or scissors lifts. And we were trying to see if we could build an elevated camera system. So we started experimenting with different concepts, and we developed the very first elevated camera system. And they were both manual systems and robotic systems initially on. And one of the first big ones that we built was for Texas A&M. We decked it out in Aggie maroon and everything, and my wife and I drove it down to Texas A&M in a Penske truck for the start of two-a-days. And that big system we called the Eagle. So we called it the Eagle Cam elevated camera system. And then we developed our Skyhawk, which is noted nationally. People see them. We have over 1,000 of them in the field, and I named the Skyhawk after the aircraft Skyhawk. When I served in Vietnam, I was in a light attack squadron, and our aircraft were Skyhawk aircrafts. That's the aircraft that John McCain was shot down in over Vietnam. So we named our robotic system the Skyhawk, and we built it into a football helmet. This is just a miniature helmet here, but we have these in colleges and high schools all over the United States. And we build a robotic camera in the helmet, then we build a modular tower that goes up to about 30 feet, 25 feet, different levels. And it could be robotically controlled from the press box or concession stand. And then we have a manual system called the Raven that you stand underneath and control it like a periscope of a submarine, moving the mast left and right or up and down. And we just developed a new system, and it was inspired by Tony Dungy when he was coaching at Tampa and then later at the Indianapolis Colts. Peyton Manning wanted to get that elevated shot over the back of his head during practice, and I was contacted eventually since we invented and developed all the elevated camera systems. And actually I put it on the back burner for a few months, and they called me 3 times on it. Finally, we started working on some prototypes, and we came up with a portable elevated camera system that's well balanced, that you could move anywhere around on the field. And we call that the Sidewinder. And we named it the Sidewinder because our Skyhawks, we used to carry Sidewinder missiles. Our other elevated camera systems we name them after birds. We have one called the Falcon that we do for gyms. It's mounted on the wall and it's robotically controlled. Then we have the Raven. Then we have the Big Eagle on the trailers. Then we have the Skyhawk and the Sidewinder. And about a year ago or so, we were honored as having invented one of the 10 most innovative creations in the history of football, technology-wise. And that was for the elevated camera system. In fact, it seems like we have developed an industry, because there's a few other people that have tried to copy some of our systems. So as Dr. John says, that's good for competition. Sometimes I'm not sure about that, but competition is good. It keeps us on our toes, and then we have to go from there. And so we're proud of our elevated camera systems, and that's how we basically got started. And we're always waiting for the first or the next idea, from coaches. One thing, as I mentioned earlier, surrounding yourself with friends and people that may have some past experience in doing things like this. Excuse me, I mentioned Dr. John Fagan. Dr. John was a scientist for NASA. He worked on the Gemini flights. He knows a lot of the astronauts. And he's the one that helped me as far as the business side of things, because he had founded a company called Medical Data Systems many years ago. And sometimes I have a little battle with him on certain things, but usually he's right on, about the advertising aspect, about the systems concept of developing our products. And being an engineer and scientist as well, the first Eagles that we built, they almost look like the lunar module, we say. And he's worked on our wind load stresses of our products that we build and machine and manufacture in our facility. And he's been a great friend, and if it weren't for him, US Sports Video wouldn't be where it is today. He goes with me to all the big shows, and Once, when we were talking about advertising, he's the one that told me the story about if you don't, this guy that didn't advertise finally advertised to sell his business. Then we were wondering how much feedback we would get from some of the advertising. And John also told me another story about somebody that had so much business that it drove him out of business. So, you know, you wonder where it's going to go. But we've really tried to keep the company kind of small. We didn't want to get real big. We have you know, we're proud of what we do and have developed these various systems. But one of the most gratifying parts to me, since I really didn't intend to have a business in the first place, I've enjoyed doing this. It's been like my labor of love. And I didn't start off with the thought of what could I do to build a company. The company more or less built itself around relationships that I've had over the years. And the coaches, my wife just can't imagine how I could remember so many coaches and where they're from. And we've got systems all over the United States with all sports. And our customers are our friends in this arena. You know, it's a special arena. I remember the first time I took Dr. John to a clinic and we were driving back. He said, Mike, I've never been into an environment like that. You know, the fraternity and the camaraderie and the fellowship. So one thing is so gratifying is to develop products that is so useful. I get calls from all over the country saying, we don't know what we would do without this product. You know, seeing the end zone shot versus the sideline shot on football. And, you know, one thing is that the customer is always first. And I would really be disappointed if we ever let one of our customers down on anything. They're my personal friends, and I take it more of a friendship than a business. And that's how the company, I think, has really helped, is being excited and working with something that you really love. Many years ago, I would get involved in other activities. I was the president of the Cleveland Model Boat Club, and I raced model boats. I was the president of the Northern Ohio Amateur Radio Society. I built that club from 30 members to over 1,300 members. I used to collate a 1,300 newsletter, 12 pages, 1,300 copies, and send them out once a month. And my wife would always gripe, Mike, if you would do something would provide a little bit of a livelihood. But these were things I enjoyed doing. When I became the athletic director at St. Joe's in Amherst, Ohio, Father Redder said, do something with the 8 acres back there. We built an 8-acre sports complex. And I built up a scale model of what we wanted to do, went to the community, got a few local grants, put a lot of man hours out there, and now everybody's using that sports complex. And I was honored with my old company as having a national award for public service on that. So finally I found something that I enjoyed and wanted to do, and it's still a lot of fun with me, and mainly the people make it fun, working with the coaches. This is why I'm happy to do this for the United States Coaches Association. See if we could help them out a little bit there, if anybody's inspired out there by what we have done to start and go forward with their ideas and things of that sort. And it's so rewarding to do something and you have a lot of fun doing it and you're helping the coaching world. So that's why we're still doing this after 20 years. You know, this is one of our very first Eagles that we built for Texas A&M. Then this is a smaller one. These were elevated camera systems with hydraulic lifts that would go up to 40 and 50 feet. We work with all the different programs. This is an Ohio State helmet. Got a lot of stuff from Jim Tressel here. I've worked with Coach Tressel for over 20 years when he was at Youngstown State. So this is a little table. Vince Lombardi was out about a year ago. We hosted him at Oberlin College. Vince Lombardi Jr., that is. Quite a speaker. We got a little plaque for doing that. But this is the Skyhawk at Ball and Wallace College. We have a few of our past advertising pages that we've done in some of the coaching magazines. This is our Falcon up here. That's what we have in a lot of basketball arenas, gymnasiums. It's a robotically controlled camera that they can control from the athletic director's office and things of that sort. Jim Tressel signed this helmet for me. It's a Buckeye helmet. And then I have one from Michigan that Bo Schembechler and Lloyd Carr both signed for me many years ago. And Bob Walsh, Hall of Fame 49ers, Bill Walsh, signed this 49ers helmet for me. And then I got this Bobby Knight, see? This was the championship ring. So it's nice working with different coaches from around the country and becoming friends with them, and we're all part of the same fraternity, and it all goes together to make the U.S. sports video work. This is one of our action monitor systems minus the camera. It has the quick release system for the camera and big heavy duty fluid head, and this is one of our poor man studio systems that we've done for many of our athletic programs throughout the United States, U.S. soccer, USA hockey, take them all over the world. So this is a nice portable studio package, and we call this the Mark system. Over here we have a Skyhawk control panel that is installed into either the press box or concession stand locker room. It's got a joystick control where you could control the camera up and down, left and right, fly it just like an airplane there. You got your zoom control on it and everything. So this is part of the Skyhawk robotic camera system. We also sell all kinds of accessories like DVD recorders, DVD duplicators, and things of that sort, VCRs, cowboy remotes. This is the helmet cam, part of the Skyhawk. We've got the robotic camera in there. It's controlled by the controller, and this they usually put in the end zone of the football field for that end zone shot. This shows a picture of the Skyhawk at Ball and Wallace College. We built many digital editing systems, and the old days were the linear editing systems with many VCRs, and we custom built these racks here for the various VCRs. We have these systems into basketball programs all over the United States, football programs, and UConn basketball. We've done Kent State, University of Toledo, a lot of the Ohio schools with systems of this nature. So these we called our digital editing towers because we built them on high towers like this. I have some past advertising pages here on these walls, and this is the Mark system with the camera and the monitor, portable studio packages, and this is one of our editing systems. We built thousands of these back in linear editing days and have them in many programs throughout the United States, ranging from hockey, football, basketball, and mostly football uses things of this sort. And now we have the new Sidewinder. And that's the system that actually was inspired. The Atlanta Falcons just ordered the Sidewinder. It's used by University of Tennessee, Auburn. And it may be one of our biggest selling products ever. And we just developed it last year after 20 years. Who would have thunk, you know? And we named it the Sidewinder because the Skyhawk aircraft, when I was in Vietnam, we carried Sidewinder missiles. And this was inspired by actually the Indianapolis Colts. Peyton Manning wanted an elevated shot over the back of his head during practice. And one thing led to another. We were contacted and we came up with the new Sidewinder. And we introduced it in January of 2010, this year. And it's really added a lot of enthusiasm and excitement around here. You know, we're proud of all the products that we build, but when you have something new that's so popular and wanted throughout the country by the athletic programs, we've got programs, soccer, lacrosse, football, using this system. It's well balanced. You could hold it straight out like that. I can't put it up all the way right here because you go through the ceiling, but it goes up in just a few seconds. And then when you're done, you just bring it down. You could store it in the corner of the office. And the magazine, American Football Monthly, had heard about the Sidewinder, and they called me and wanted to do a free advertising story on it, or new product story. So they contacted me. I gave them some names of some coaches that were using it, and they called me back later and said, Mike, we have never had such an enthusiastic response from the coaches as far as any new product. In fact, Stan Parrish, the head football coach at Ball State University, they had called him because he was one of the very first one to get one. And he said, let me call you back. I'm on vacation right now, but we'll be driving home next Monday. So on his way home, he called the magazine with his wife there in the car, told them all about how they're using the Sidewinder for so many drills at Ball State. You've got a zoom control here that you could zoom into the activity. You can move it around anywhere, and it elevates to about 14 feet. That's the new Sidewinder. Things are always coming down. Coaches are helping us, inspiring us to do new products. These are Skyhawks that have already been manufactured and packaged out in our factory. They're all packaged with the Skyhawk on there. So when we ship out a Skyhawk, they get one of those packages, and then we separate package the trunk after we prep the trunk assembly here. This is a hook for the weight to help stabilize it. Just like anything else, you have to build some prototypes, research and development. These are some of our earlier Eagle Cam Eagles. This is what like Texas A&M got many years ago. It's got a hydraulic lift. Now this one will go up to about 60 feet. Got all the electronics built in there. This is the Eagle Cam US Sports Video, one of our earlier systems. We have another Eagle Cam package here. And we have a blue one sitting back over here. So this is how all the concept of these things evolve over the years. These are the manual system, the Ravens. So we've got Ravens in here, we got Skyhawks ready to go, and we have Sidewinders, and these are some of the bigger Eagle systems. This is some of the welding and machining that we've done for the Skyhawk heads. We mill out the aluminum, TIG weld, all of this is made out of aluminum, then we have it anodized. And then when we get it in here, we mount the cameras and customize them for our Skyhawk and Falcon systems.